السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الأمين وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحاب الغر الميامين وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. We are resuming our reading of Maraqi al-Sa'adat by Imam Abu al-Ikhlas al-Shurumbulali al-Hanafi rahimahullah, and we are commencing today. We finished the section on impurities, wiping over the footgear. We are now on the section on wells, and we will, as usual, we will read the Arabic, and then we will bi'idhnillahi ta'ala go through it, and then if there's any questions you have, we will endeavor to answer them bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. قال إمام الشرمبلالي نفعنا الله به. He rahimahullah, he says, فصل: البئر الصغيرة إذا وقع فيها نجاسة كبول ودم وخرق دجاج تنجست ولو قلت ولم يظهر أثرها، وكذا بالكثير من البعر والروث والخثي، ولا قليل وهو لا يكون كثيرا عند ناظره، ولا بخرق حمام وعصفور، ولا بموت الحيوان لا دم له كبق وذباب وزنبور وعقرب، ولا بسمك وحيوان الماء، ولا بوقوع الآدمي وإبل وبقر وحمار وسباع الطير وروحش ووحش إذا خرج حيا وليس به النجاسة متحققة. إذا مات الحيوان فيها فهو على 3 أقسام: صغير ووسط وكبير. الصغير الفأرة يجب نزعه 20 دلوة، وبالوسط كالحمامة يجب 40 دلوة، وبالكبير كلها. كذا بانتفاخ الصغير أو فسخه، 200 لو لم يمكن نزعها. وإذا وصل لعاب الواقع إلى الماء نزح بالنجس المشكوك واستحب في المكروه. So the Sheikh rahimahullah, he says wells, I don't know why the document's jumping. He says البئر الصغيرة إذا وقع فيها نجاسة كبول ودم وخرق دجاج تنجست. If a small well of water is made impure, تنجست, is made impure, if filth, najasa, falls into it, the kind of filth, kabowlin, like urine, or damin, or blood, or khur'i dajajin, and chicken droppings. وَلَوْ قَلَّتْ وَلَمْ يَظْهَرْ أَثَرُهَا, even if it's a small amount, without any traces of that najasa appearing in the water. Then he says the same ruling, وَكَذَا, the same ruling, بِالْكَثِير, the same ruling applies for when من البعر والروث والخثي. The same ruling applies when a large amount of camel feces, donkeys, and cattle also fall into the water. لا القليل وهو ما لا يكون كثيرا عند ناظره. And as opposed to a small amount, which is namely a small amount, which is not considered large by the one who sees it in the well. وهو ما لا يكون كثيرا عند ناظره. So it's dependent on the observer. So if the observer sees a a small amount of camel feces, donkey feces, or cattle feces in the well, and to them it doesn't appear to be a lot, then it's excused. ولا بخرء حمام وعصفور. Then he says the following do not, ولا بخرء is continuing with the ruling that the well is not rendered impure. ولا بخرء حمام وعصفور. Pigeon or sparrow droppings do not make the well impure. ولا بموت الحيوان لا دم له. Dead creatures that have no blood, that does not render the well impure. كبق, like mosquitoes, وذباب or flies, وزنبور or wasps, وعقرب and scorpions. And neither does ولا بسمك وحيوان الماء. Neither does fish or any sea creature render the well impure. ولا بوقوع الآدمي وإبل وبقر وحمار وسباع الطير ووحش إذا خرج حيا وليس به نجاسة متحققة. Any creature that falls in the well but yet comes out alive, as long as no filth was on the body, then that doesn't make the water in the well impure. And that includes human beings, camels, cows, donkeys, predatory animals, anything like that, except pig. If the pig falls in the well, then it's najas, it becomes impure. But any other animal or creature, land creature that falls in the well but gets out, doesn't render. إذا خرج حيا, comes out alive, ليس به نجاسة متحققة. It doesn't render the well impure. Then he says, إذا مات الحيوان فيها فهو على ثلاثة أقسام. If a creature, an animal, dies in the well, then there are three categories that each have a ruling, and this is by size, because he says صغير ووسط وكبير. So there's three rulings regarding how much water is to be removed based on the creature's size. The first one is فالصغيرة كالفأرة يجب نزح 20 دلوا. If it's a small creature like a mouse, the size of a mouse, then it's wajib, yajibu, it's mandatory to remove 20 buckets full of water. وبالوسط كالحمامة يجب 40. If it's a medium-sized creature like a pigeon, then it's mandatory to remove 40 buckets. وبالكبير كلها. And if it's a large animal, then all of the water must be removed. وكذا, the same ruling applies بانتفاخ الصغير أو تفسخه. The same ruling applies if an animal was small or medium, but it becomes bloated, like its carcass is bloated, or tafassukhihi, it becomes in pieces. If the carcass is in pieces, it's spread out, it's fragmented, or it's bloated, then all the water needs to be removed. If it is not possible to remove all of the water, then you must remove 200 buckets. ومئتان لو لم يمكن نزحها. So any animal that falls in the water, if it's small, medium, or big, each has its ruling. If it's small, then you've got to remove 20 buckets full of water. If it's medium, then it's got to be a double that. And if it's big, then all the water has to be removed. And if any animal is a small or medium size, but yet its carcass, its dead body is really bloated, or it's lots of pieces of it are floating around, then the entire water has to be removed. And if one isn't able to do that, then 200 buckets. Then he says, rahimahullah, وإذا وصل لعاب الواقع إلى الماء نزح بالنجس والمشكوك واستحب في المكروه. If the saliva of an animal touches the water, then all the water must be removed. If the saliva was impure, or the saliva is considered to be mashkuk, of doubtful category, وأستحب في المكروه, and it is recommended to remove the water. And now he's going to come on to, rahimahullah, the types of saliva. So if the saliva of the animal touches the water, then all of the water must be removed. نزح بالنجس والمشكوك وأستحب في المكروه, and it is recommended merely to remove the water. And now he's coming on to the section of saliva. أصل أسعار 4. الأول طاهر مطهر بلا كراهة، وهو سؤر الآدمي طاهر الفم ولو جنبا أو كافرا، وسؤر الفرس وما يؤكل لحمه. والثاني سؤر النجس لا يصح به الطهارة بحال، ولا يشربه إلا مضطر كأكله الميتة، وهو سؤر الكلب وخنزير والسبع والذئب والضبع والقرد ونحوها. والثالث مكروه مع وجود غيره، وهو سؤر الهرة الأهلية والدجاجة مخلات، والسباع الطير كالصقر والشاهين، وسواكين البيوت كالفأرة والحية، فإن لم يجد غيره فلا كراهة في طهارة به. والرابع سؤر مشكوك في حكم طهوريته، وهو سؤر البغل والحمار، فإن لم يجد غيره توضأ به وتيمم ثم صلى. The Shaykh rahimahullah, he says saliva is of 4 categories, of 4 types, with regards to whether the saliva has mixed with the water. So with regarding saliva mixing with water, there are 4 rulings. The first ruling is al-awwal tahirun mutahhir bila karaha, that there's a saliva that still makes the water pure and purifying, and it is not disliked. There's no dislike in it. And this is the su'r al-adami, tahirul fam. This is the saliva of a human being whose mouth is clean, even if that person, walau junuban aw kafiran, even if that person is in a state requiring him to do wudu, or he's in a state requiring him to do ghusl, he's in a state of being ritually unclean, not physically unclean, even if it's a non-Muslim. وَسُؤْرُ الْفَرَسِ, the saliva of a horse, وَمَا يُؤْكَلُ لَحْمُهُ, and the saliva of any animal whose meat is permissible to eat. Then there's a second category, وَالثَّانِي سُؤْرُ النَّجِسِ. There is the saliva that takes the ruling of impurity. لا يصح به الطهارة بحال. This type of water that's mixed with this kind of saliva, may not be used for purification in any circumstances. وَلَا يَشْرُبُهُ, and its water cannot be, one cannot drink the water إِلَّا مُضْطَرٌ, unless a person is absolutely compelled, they're in dire need. And that will be just as if he was in the case of كَأَكْلِهِ مَيْتَةً, just like a person who is in such dire need and in such, serious and necessary circumstances that he has no other option. He can eat, he may eat animal that is slaughtered not in a halal way, not in a ritually acceptable way. So if someone is in that kind of dire need, then he may use that water and drink it. And this category includes su'rul kalb, the saliva of dog, wal khinzir, pig, was sab'u, predatory animals, wal dhi'b, wal dab', wal qird. So things like wolves, hyenas, monkeys, and things like that, animals like that. If the saliva of these kind of animals, like predatory animals that are not allowed to be eaten, then they render the water impure. It cannot be used for purification, and it cannot be used, and that water one cannot drink that water unless it was out of necessity. Just like one can eat a meat that is not halal out of necessity. وَالثالث مَكْرُوهٌ مَعَ وُجُودِ غَيْرِهِ. This is slightly disliked, makruh tanzihan, if ma'a wujudi ghayrihi, if there is other water available. وهو سؤر الحرة الأهلية. These include the saliva of domesticated cats, والدجاجة المخلات, roaming chickens, i.e. free-range chickens that walk around, pecking on the floor. They can pick up filth from anywhere, so they're not penned in. There's not a battery farm chicken. وَالسِّبَاعُ الطَّيْرِ كَالصَّقَرِ وَالشَّاهِينِ, predatory birds such as hawks or falcons and things like that. وَسَوَاكِينِ الْبُيُوتِ كَالْفَأْرَةِ وَالْحَيَّةِ, animals or creatures that roam around houses like mice and snakes. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ غَيْرَهُ فَلَا كَرَاهَةَ فِي الطَّهَارَةِ بِهِ. If no water is available, like water of the first category, طاهر مطهر, then it is not disliked to use this kind of water for one's purification purposes, to do wudu and ghusl. The fourth category, الرابع سؤر مشكوك في حكم طهوريته. So then there is the category, the fourth category, where there is doubt regarding its purifying nature. There is doubt regarding its purificatory nature. And this includes the saliva of mules, والحمار, mules and donkeys. فإن لم يجد غيره توضأ به وتيمم ثم صلى. If no water is available, then one uses this water to do wudu. One makes wudu with this water, followed by وتيمم, tayammum, the dry ablution, and then one prays. That was the section on types of saliva, and now the Shaykh rahimahullah will conclude with the final section on the purificatory section on al-istinja, or cleaning oneself after one has gone to relieve oneself. So he says, فصل في الاستنجاء يلزم الرجل الاستبراء حتى يطمئن بزوال أثر البلل الذي يظهر برأس السبيل لأن ظهوره يمنع صحة الوضوء. وإذا لم يتجاوز النجس مخرجه يسن منه الاستنجاء بنحو حجر منق يقبل ويدبر حتى ينقي المحل بالمس، والأفضل الغسل بعده حتى يطمئن بزوال النجاسة ويبالغ في إزالة الرائحة الكريهة، ولا يجوز كشف العورة له. وإذا تجاوزت النجاسة مخرجها فإن كان متجاوز لا يزيد على معفو عنه صحت معه الصلاة. فإن زاد افترض إزالتها كما يفترض مطلقا عند الاغتسال من نحو جنابة. ويكره الاستنجاء بعظم وروث وطعام ويمين شيء محترم كالديباج والقطن، ويدخل الخلاء بيساره ويستعيذ قبل دخوله، ويجلس غير مستقبل قبلة وشمسا وقمرا وغير مستدبر، ولا يتكلم بلا ضرورة، ويخرج بيمينه ثم يقول الحمد لله الذي أذهب عني الأذى وعافاني. وإذا تطهر ثوبا وبدنا ومكانا وأقبل على صلاة نحوها مع طهارة نافع من نحو الغل والحقد وعما سوى الله قاصدا امتثال أمره سبحانه ملاحظا عظمة جلاله وكبريائه راجيا قبول ما كلفه به يرجى له السعادة بقبول العبادة. So he says رحمه الله يلزم الرجل استبراء حتى يطمئن بزوال أثر البلل الذي يظهر برأس السبيل لأن ظهوره يمنع صحة الوضوء. If after a person has gone to the toilet to urinate, then a man must ensure that no drops of urine remain in the urethra, the tip of the penis. He has to make sure that no urine remains in that area, the upper area, until there's no traces of wetness appears at the tip of that part. Why? لأن ظهوره يمنع صحة الوضوء. Because having wetness there, its appearance at the tip of the male part prevents the validity of wudu. It prevents the validity of wudu. So it must be removed. And this can be performed a number of ways. One can clear one's throat, one can cough. Some people gently squeeze the area, the tip. Some people, shake a little bit. Might be unwise to do that in case the drops fall on the clothes. Some people ensure that by walking, whatever physical means one can do. It depends on the person, what they feel comfortable doing. So the point of istibra is for you for the man to be sure that there is no traces of wetness that remains on the surface, on the tip, where the urine exits. And so it's fard, it's obligatory that men ensure that the urine drops are removed from that area. And women don't have to do that. They can just finish relieving themselves and wait until there are no more drops and then clean that area. وإذا لم يتجاوز النجس مخرجه يسن منه الاستنجاء بنحو حجر منقب يقبل ويدبر حتى ينقي المحل بالمس. If any filth does not move beyond the orifice, the area from which the filth exits, whether from the back or the front, if no filth moves beyond that area, then it is sunnah to clean that area by using stones that remove filth or anything like that. then one should يقبل ويدبر. One should wipe forwards and backwards حتى ينقي المحل بالمسح. One should clean the area. We're talking about, the back area now. If the back orifice, the rear orifice, when one is relieving oneself, if filth doesn't go beyond the orifice, the hole from which one relieves oneself, if filth doesn't spread beyond that hole, the size of sort of a small coin, that size, then it's sunnah then to clean that area forwards and backwards with stones or any object that can fulfill the purpose of cleaning. It's sunnah to do so. What is better though, al-ghaslu ba'dahu, to wash the area after one has wiped it. حتى يطمئن بزوال النجاسة, until one feels convinced and one is sure, one is certain that the najasa has been removed, the filth has been removed. ويبالغ في إزالة الرائحة الكريهة. Then one ought to continue washing the area until the bad smell has pretty much gone away. So the bad odor that comes out from when one relieves oneself, one should do the cleaning until the bad smell is gone. One should wash that area until the bad smell is gone. ولا يجوز كشف العورة له. One is not allowed to expose one's awra, one's area that must be covered, the nakedness, when one is going to relieve oneself. It's not permissible to expose one's private areas to another person. وإذا تجاوزت النجاسة مخرجها فإن كان المتجاوز لا يزيد على ما عفو عنه صحت معه الصلاة. If the filth moves beyond the exit hole, the orifices, yet the amount that moved is less than what is excused, the salah with that amount of filth is valid. We covered this before. However, if it exceeds the excusable amount, al-ma'fu an, if it exceeds that excusable amount, then افترض إزالتها كما يفترض مطلقا عند الاغتسال من نحو الجنابة. Then it becomes obligatory fard to remove that filth, just as it is obligatory to perform the ghusl if one is in a state of major ritual impurity. So if one has an inexcusable amount of filth that has come out of the orifice, that come out of the exit hole, so one has gone to the toilet and then one has relieved oneself, and an inexcusable amount of filth has exceeded the area from which the filth exits, then salah will not be valid if it's an inexcusable amount. It becomes personally obligatory to remove that filth. Just like it takes the same ruling as if one was in a state of ritual impurity requiring a ghusl. ويكره الاستنجاء بعظم وروث وطعام ويمين وشيء محترم كالديباج قطن. It is disliked to clean oneself with items like a bone, dry dung, or feces, anything of value like silk or cotton. It is also disliked, and it's makruh tahrim, and it's prohibitively disliked. All these categories is also prohibitively disliked to use one's right hand for cleaning oneself, because he says here, وَيَمِينٍ, with the right, using the right hand to clean oneself, وَشَيْءٍ مُحْتَرَمٍ, and valuable items. وَيَدْخُلُ الْخَلَاءَ بِيَسَارِهِ, one should enter the the area where one will, relieve oneself, like a lavatory, with the left foot. وَيَسْتَعِيذُ قَبْلَ دُخُولِهِ, and one should say أعوذ بالله, seek refuge from Allah before entering. وَيَجْلِسُ غَيْرَ مُسْتَقْبِلٍ قِبْلَةً وَشَمْسًا وَقَمَرًا, one must sit to relieve oneself, neither facing the direction of the Kaaba al-Musharrafa, i.e. the Qibla, nor should one do that, nor should one's back be to the Qibla as well. مستقبل وغير مستدبر. So one's front and back should not be facing the Qibla, and one's front shouldn't be towards the Qibla, or one should not sit in a way where the back is towards the Qibla. And one should not sit facing the two great signs of Allah, the sun and the moon. That is considered to be a form of disrespect. Because these are great ayatan, these are great signs of Allah Azza wa Jal. وَلَا يَتَكَلَّمُ بِلَا ضَرُورَةٍ, one must not speak when one is relieving oneself without necessity. Without necessity. The ruling, one shouldn't speak unless one is out of necessity. وَيَخْرُجُ بِيَمِينِهِ, and when one finishes relieving oneself, one should exit the area, like the lavatory, or toilet, the restroom, wherever it might be, with the right foot. And then he ought to say the following dua: Alhamdulillah alladhi adhaba anni al-adha wa afani. All praise belong to Allah Azza wa Jal, who removed harm from my body, and he granted me afani, well-being. وَإِذَا تَطَهَّرَ ثَوْبًا وَبَدَنًا وَمَكَانًا, after a person purifies his garments, his body and prayer area, وَأَقْبَلَ عَلَى الصَّلَاةِ, and commences the prayer, or turns towards commencing the prayer, وَنَحْوِهَا مَعَ الطَّهَارَةِ النَّافِعَةِ, accompanied with beneficial purification, من نحو الغل, rancor, والحقد, hatred, وعما سوى الله قاصدا, and has his intention purely for the sake of Allah, nothing else. وامتثال أمره سبحانه, and carries out the command of Allah Azza wa Jal, all of Allah's commands. ملاحظا عظمة جلاله وكبريائه, bearing in mind and being aware of the greatness and majesty and the honor of Allah Azza wa Jal. راجيا قبول ما كلفه به, having full hope that that what he's been obligated to do will be accepted to Allah. Only then يرجى له سعادة بقبول العبادة, only then will he will be eternal salvation or joy or bliss will be hoped for him due to his amal being accepted. So if one purifies oneself physically and internally, from all the sort of internal maladies and ailments, so if one physically prepares oneself through the right, correct acts of ritual purification, and one purifies one's inner self of all the sort of vileness that can come, like hatred, rancor, things like that, and one only intends to do these acts for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, following his commandments alone, and bearing in mind and being cognizant that of Allah's greatness, his majesty, and his honor, and having strong hope that what one has been obligated to do, or what one has been enjoined to do, will be accepted, only then can eternal bliss be hoped for such a person with his acts being accepted. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept our efforts, and we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept, to enable us to purify ourselves outwardly and inwardly, in so that it can be hoped that our amal, our deeds can be accepted. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. So the Shaykh rahimahullah has finished his book on purification. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, next session we will commence Kitab al-Salah, the book on prayer, and I will end it here. And so if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Sallallahu ala sayyidina